Hello, welcome to Coast Gardening. I'm Marshall Blake. I wanted to discuss tomato plants with you here a little bit. There is a few helpful tips that I got for tomato plants. First of all, there's two different kinds of ways that I plant tomato plants. Now these are Better Boy tomato plants. They're 75-day tomato plants. And you can see I've kind of planted them in a patch. When you plant them in a patch like this, it's a good idea to take your garden hoe, and what you do is you set them between the plants. And that's how I determine my spacing for a patch of tomato plants. And of course it's the same way both ways on the tomato plant. You space them out both ways, and you should end up with a pretty nice square tomato patch. So the gardening hoe tip is a great idea. This is the first way that I plant tomatoes. The second way that I like to plant tomatoes, since this is a 75-day tomato, I also like to plant some early growth tomatoes. Now these are a 50-day tomato plant. And again, I do the spacing about the same way. I'll set my garden hoe down, and that's my spacing. Now, if you'll notice, the early growth tomato plants are planted in a straight row. This is another great way to plant tomato plants. That way you have room to walk down each side of the tomato plant and harvest your tomatoes when they're ready 50 days from now. So here are the two different ways that I usually plant tomatoes. Now, gardeners all over the country have different ideas about the best way to plant their tomato rows or patches. Some people actually plant them up on fences and train them to go up fences. I got a friend up in Maine that was telling me about that scenario. Now, after you plant your tomato plants, there's a danger of wind breaking tomatoes over, or there's a danger of birds snipping your tomato plants off. Now, a lot of people will buy these little garden cages for their tomato plants, tomato cages, whatever you want to call them. And you can buy them sometimes from about $3 plumb up to $8 a piece. This is an added expense for growing tomatoes, in my opinion. However, a lot of people would not go without their tomato cages, but as you can see, I clearly do not use them. I just set this here for an example. If you use tomato cages, we'd love to know how that works out for you. Drop us a comment in the comment box here on YouTube. Now, I was telling you about the wind breaking off tomato plants, and I was telling you about the birds. They'll snip them off right down here at the base, or they'll snip off the little leaves from your tomato plants. Now I use one of these. This is just a 6-inch tile. It's made of concrete, it's heavy, it's not going to blow over. What I do is I just take and set that over the tomato plant. And the tomato plant stays nice and safe down there, away from any garden birds that like to snip off your plants, or it keeps it safe when it's really windy. These, in my opinion, are worth their weight in gold. So if you find some of these little tiles to use in your garden along with your tomato plants, it's a very good idea to have them. I was telling you earlier that I do not cage my tomatoes. I let them grow up and they just kind of fall over really on the ground. You will have a few rotten tomatoes at the bottom, but you are going to have twice as many, in my opinion, as if, compared to using the cage. You might end up with half of the tomato crop that I'm going to have. Now, we would again like to hear your comments on Do you think tomatoes grow better in cages or just left out in the open or on a fence? Or some people plant tomatoes in cages to kind of keep them. We'd like to hear from gardeners all over the country about how they organize their tomato patches, whether it's a patch or a row. Until next time, I'm Marshall Blake. God bless you.